The quantum communication array crackled with desperation as Admiral Zexai's 6 arms worked frantically across the console. The Korthak warfleet stretched across the view screen like a metal plague. 10,000 ships, each one bristling with planet-killer weapons. Behind them, the peaceful worlds of the Galactic Coalition burned. "How many?" whispered Commander Thala, her blue-scaled face pale with fear. 10,000 confirmed, Zexai replied, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Maybe more jumping in from hyperspace. Intelligence reports they're using some kind of dark matter weaponry that ignores our shields entirely." The bridge of the Coalition flagship Harmony fell silent. They had barely 300 ships left after the massacre at Proxima Station. The mathematics of survival were simple and terrifying. "Sir," the communications officer's voice trembled. "Incoming transmission from the Korthak flagship." The holographic display shimmered, revealing the nightmare visage of war leader Graktul. His cybernetic implants glowed red against his chitinous, black exoskeleton, and his 4 eyes burned with cruel intelligence. "Coalition insects," Graktul's voice scraped like metal on bone. "Surrender now, and we will grant your species the honor of slavery. Resist, and we will exterminate every last one of your pathetic worlds." Zexai's secondary heart stopped beating for a moment. The Korthak had never offered terms before. They were that confident of victory. "We need time to consider," Zexai began. "1 standard hour," Graktul snarled, cutting the transmission. As the hologram faded, panic erupted on the bridge. Some officers argued for surrender, others for a desperate last charge. But Zexai's mind raced toward a forbidden possibility, a plan so dangerous, so insane, that it had been locked away in the deepest vaults of Coalition intelligence. "Clear the bridge," he ordered quietly. "Everyone except Command Staff Alpha." When only his most trusted officers remained, Zexai activated the highest security protocols. The bridge sealed, jammers engaged, and even the ship's AI was temporarily disconnected. "The Terran protocol," he said simply. Commander Thala's scales shifted to deep purple, the Zalani equivalent of turning white with fear. "Admiral, that's been classified as a galactic extinction event. The simulations showed we'd all be dead if we ever got desperate enough to consider it," Zexai interrupted. "Look outside, Commander. We're already there." The Terran protocol had been developed 50 years ago, when Coalition deep space explorers had stumbled upon a small blue world in an unremarkable system. The planet's dominant species had fascinated and horrified xenobiologists in equal measure. They called themselves humans, and they were the most violently creative species ever catalogued. While other species had evolved past their aggressive phases to achieve spaceflight, humans had reached the stars despite still being actively at war with themselves. Their entire civilization was built on a foundation of controlled violence, competitive destruction, and an almost pathological refusal to accept defeat. The Coalition had made first contact, but after extensive psychological analysis, had classified humanity as too dangerous for general interaction. The humans were quarantined to their system with a simple message: "Achieve galactic peace, and we will welcome you. Until then, develop alone." But the protocol remained, a last resort so terrible that even considering it required unanimous consent from all Coalition Council members. "Send the emergency beacon to all Council worlds," Zexai commanded. "Full authorization vote, maximum priority." 47 minutes later, as Korthak ships began moving into attack formation, the votes came back. 17 species, 47 worlds, 1 billion representatives. Unanimous consent. Zexai's hands shook as he entered the activation codes. Deep in Coalition space, automated systems awakened. A specially designed beacon, powered by an entire star's output, began broadcasting toward the Sol system. The message was simple, transmitted in perfect human languages. "We are outnumbered. We are outgunned. We are dying. If any of you still remember the concept of a fair fight, we could use some help." The response came faster than physics should have allowed. Message received, standby. The space around the coalition fleet began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to hiccup, and then they appeared. Not ships, exactly. The humans had apparently decided that traditional spacecraft were inefficient. Instead, they had somehow weaponized their entire moon, turning it into a mobile battle station. It materialized between the Coalition and Korthak fleets, its surface bristling with weapons that hurt to look at directly. Behind Luna came the human fleet, if it could even be called that. They flew in everything from sleek warships to converted cargo haulers covered in guns. Some pilots appeared to be using personal fighters that somehow mounted weapons larger than Coalition destroyers. The lead human ship broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Force. To the Korthak fleet, you have 10 seconds to withdraw before we demonstrate why humanity hasn't had a quiet century in over 5,000 years. Gruchtul's response was predictable. Primitive apes, we outnumber you 1,000 to 1. Yeah, came the human reply, and Zexhai could hear the smile in her voice. We were hoping you'd say that. Terran fleet, you are weapons free. Show them why we're the species that looked at the food chain and decided we belonged at the top. What followed couldn't be called a battle. It was an education. The humans fought like their planet was still covered with predators, because in their minds it was. They used strategies that violated every principle of civilized warfare, ramming attacks, suicide runs, explosive decompression as a weapon. One human pilot actually ejected from his crippled fighter and somehow managed to board a Korthak dreadnought with nothing but a plasma rifle and what appeared to be an ancient human weapon called a chainsaw. When a Korthak ship disabled a human vessel, the humans didn't retreat or surrender. They detonated their own reactor and took 3 enemy ships with them, their final transmission being something that translated roughly to, "Witness me." The Yat, Korthak dark matter weapons, which had torn through Coalition shields like tissue paper, seemed merely to annoy the humans. Their ships were armored with what looked like solid matter compressed to impossible densities, and their shields were apparently powered by the same fury that had driven them to drag fire from the gods and electricity from the sky. In 30 minutes it was over. The massive Korthak fleet was either destroyed or fleeing, and Gruchtul himself had been captured when human marines somehow teleported directly onto his bridge. As the human fleet regrouped, Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Coalition forces, this is Chen, threat neutralized. We'll escort your ships to safety, then head home. Our government will be in touch about reopening diplomatic relations. Oh, and Admiral Zexhai. Yes, Admiral Chen. Thanks for giving us an excuse to finally use the moon. The engineers have been asking for field tests for decades. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Zexhai realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity hadn't just answered their call for help. They had reminded the universe that sometimes the most dangerous response to overwhelming odds isn't surrender. Sometimes it's to call for backup from the species that considers overwhelming odds a personal challenge. The beacon that had summoned the Terrans continued broadcasting, but its message had changed. Humanity is no longer quarantined. Welcome to the galaxy, humans. Try not to conquer it by accident.